What should have been a day of celebration and love turned into a nightmare of unimaginable tragedy. Tiffany Brooks, a beloved Alabama influencer with millions of fans, and her fiancé, Jason King, a rising tech entrepreneur, were brutally murdered in front of their closest friends and family. The culprit? Tiffany's ex and baby daddy, Malik Turner, a man driven by jealousy, obsession, and a dark past that refused to let go. This story isn't just about a shocking crime, it's a haunting exploration of how unresolved emotions, jealousy, and obsession can spiral out of control. How did a picture-perfect wedding end in such gruesome violence? And could this tragedy have been prevented? Before we dive into this heart-wrenching tale, don't forget to subscribe to The Last Confession. Here, we bring you the most jaw-dropping stories of love, betrayal, and tragedy that you won't find anywhere else. Tiffany Brooks was the kind of influencer people couldn't help but admire. At just 26 years old, she had built a massive following on social media with her radiant smile, impeccable style, and relatable yet aspirational content. Known as Bama's Darling, Tiffany shared glimpses of her life in Montgomery, Alabama, her journey as a single mom, her entrepreneurial ventures, and her undeniable chemistry with her fiancé, Jason King. Their love story seemed straight out of a fairy tale, captivating not just her followers but everyone who crossed their path. Jason, 32, was the perfect partner for Tiffany. A tech entrepreneur with a booming business in app development, he matched her drive and ambition. Together, they embodied modern Black excellence, a power couple carving out a future built on mutual love and respect. Their relationship, which began 3 years earlier at a tech conference in Atlanta, blossomed quickly. Within months, Jason was not just a boyfriend to Tiffany but also a doting father figure to her 5-year-old daughter, Amara. The announcement of their wedding sent waves of excitement through their followers and community. Tiffany's fans were eager for every update, the lavish venue booked for the big day, her designer gown custom-made in Atlanta, and the beautiful family moments she shared leading up to the ceremony. It wasn't just a wedding, it was a celebration of everything Tiffany and Jason had overcome to find each other. But behind Tiffany's picture-perfect life lay a complicated history with Malik Turner, her 28-year-old ex-boyfriend and Amara's father. Malik, once a promising athlete in his high school years, had taken a darker path after their breakup. A string of legal troubles and bad decisions had tarnished his life, but Tiffany had always tried to maintain some level of civility for Amara's sake. Their relationship had been tumultuous, marked by Malik's jealousy and possessiveness, which ultimately led to their split. Despite their rocky history, Tiffany worked hard to give her daughter the best of both worlds, often shielding Amara from Malik's instability. But Malik's bitterness toward Tiffany's new life, and especially toward Jason, was no secret to those close to the couple. As Tiffany and Jason prepared for their big day, Malik's resentment simmered just beneath the surface. Friends noticed him growing increasingly withdrawn, while Tiffany mentioned receiving cryptic, passive-aggressive messages from him. She chalked it up to jealousy, never imagining how deep Malik's obsession truly ran. For Tiffany, her life with Jason was the fresh start she'd always dreamed of, a chance to leave her turbulent past behind and step into a bright future. But for Malik, it was a cruel reminder of everything he'd lost. The wedding that promised a new chapter for Tiffany and Jason would soon become a devastating clash between love, jealousy, and unresolved pain. Tiffany Brooks and Malik Turner's relationship was once a fiery whirlwind of passion and love. In their younger years, they were inseparable, a couple full of dreams and ambition. Malik, with his charm and natural athletic ability, had been the star of their high school, and Tiffany, with her vibrant personality and striking beauty, was his perfect match. Together, they were the couple everyone admired, their future seemingly limitless. But behind the facade of their passionate romance lay cracks that began to widen as the years went by. Malik's temper was short, and his need for control often clashed with Tiffany's growing desire for independence. Their arguments became louder, their reconciliations shorter. Despite the tumult, they stayed together for years, even welcoming their daughter, Amara, into the world. The arrival of Amara should have been a turning point, but it only deepened the tension between them. Malik's promising athletic career had fizzled out, and his inability to secure stable work led him to darker paths. A series of petty crimes turned into more serious charges, culminating in a 2-year prison sentence. For Tiffany, it was the final straw. She loved Malik once, but she couldn't keep holding on to someone determined to drag her down. While Malik served his sentence, Tiffany made a decision that changed the trajectory of her life. She left him, focusing on building a future for herself and her daughter. It was during this time that her social media presence began to grow, her relatable content about motherhood and resilience striking a chord with her followers. What started as a side hustle soon turned into a thriving career as a lifestyle influencer. By the time Malik was released, Tiffany was a different person. She was independent, successful, and already dating Jason King. Malik's bitterness was immediate. Seeing Tiffany rise to fame while his life had stagnated was a constant source of resentment. His frustration turned to anger when he saw how Jason had stepped in as a father figure to Amara, a role Malik felt was rightfully his. At first, Malik's behavior was subtle, occasional passive-aggressive comments during custody exchanges and unwelcome presence at Tiffany's events. But as Tiffany's relationship with Jason deepened, Malik's bitterness grew into an unhealthy obsession. His social media posts became darker, filled with veiled threats and cryptic references to betrayal. Friends noticed him loitering outside Tiffany's neighborhood, and she even caught him following her car more than once. Malik's refusal to let go was evident to everyone but him. Tiffany tried to manage the situation diplomatically for Amara's sake, often brushing off Malik's actions as the frustration of a man unable to move on. But those closest to her began to worry. Malik's behavior was escalating, and his resentment toward her new life showed no signs of fading. Unbeknownst to Tiffany, Malik's obsession was reaching dangerous levels. He saw her upcoming wedding to Jason as the ultimate betrayal, a final rejection of the life they once shared. What should have been a celebration of love and new beginnings was, in Malik's mind, a provocation he couldn't ignore. Tiffany Brooks and Jason King's wedding day was everything they had dreamed of, a lavish celebration of love, surrounded by family, friends, and well-wishers. The sprawling Birmingham estate where they chose to say their vows was adorned with white roses, gold accents, and delicate crystal chandeliers, the air buzzing with excitement. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, casting a soft glow over the gathering. Tiffany, radiant in her custom-designed gown of lace and satin, was a vision of elegance. The gown's intricate beading shimmered in the sunlight as she walked down the aisle, her smile beaming brighter than any jewel. Jason, dashing in a custom-tailored tuxedo, stood waiting at the altar, his eyes locked on his bride. He had always been her rock, and today, he stood tall as the man who would make Tiffany's dreams a reality. The guests looked on in awe, many of them wiping away tears as Tiffany and Jason exchanged their vows under an elegant floral arch draped in white roses, peonies, and ivy. The sound of their voices, filled with love and commitment, resonated through the estate, carrying with it promises of forever. I vow to support you, to lift you up when life gets hard, and to cherish you in every moment, Jason said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Tiffany's voice was equally full of love as she responded, I promise to always love you, to be by your side no matter where life takes us, and to build a future with you and Amara. Tiffany and Jason exchanged rings, simple but elegant bands that symbolized their commitment to one another. With their hands entwined, they sealed their vows with a kiss, the crowd erupting into applause. It was the perfect moment, full of love and joy. The entire ceremony had been meticulously planned, with every detail in place to make the day unforgettable. Guests whispered about how perfectly Tiffany had orchestrated the entire event. Everything from the floral arrangements to the carefully curated playlist that played softly in the background. As they walked down the aisle as husband and wife, Tiffany and Jason were showered with rose petals, their smiles wide and genuine. The joy and excitement were palpable. Tiffany's 5-year-old daughter, Amara, twirled in her flower girl dress, giggling as she dashed ahead, leading the couple out of the ceremony with innocent joy. Guests were already murmuring about the grand reception to follow, a night filled with dinner, dancing, and heartfelt speeches. It was a fairy tale come to life, a celebration of love, family, and the future. The reception followed soon after, a glamorous affair with champagne flowing freely and elegantly dressed guests mingling in the grand ballroom. Tiffany and Jason shared their first dance, an intimate moment that captured the essence of their love. As they swayed to the soft melody, Tiffany's head rested on Jason's shoulder, and for a brief moment, the world seemed perfect. They laughed and whispered sweet words to each other, their happiness infectious to everyone around them. Amara, delighted by the magic of the day, played with the flower girls nearby, her laughter ringing through the venue. The night was young, and the music, food, and laughter filled the air as guests began to dance under the glittering chandeliers. It was a picture-perfect moment, Tiffany and Jason's dream day, with every detail falling into place. But as the evening continued, unbeknownst to the happy couple, a dark presence loomed nearby. Malik Turner, Tiffany's ex-boyfriend and the father of her child, had been watching from the shadows, consumed by rage and jealousy. The wedding, which should have been a celebration of Tiffany's happiness, was a painful reminder of everything he had lost. Seeing Tiffany's life with Jason, the life he had never been able to provide for her, filled him with bitterness. As the night grew later, with music and laughter still echoing through the estate, Malik made his move. Dressed inconspicuously and armed with a handgun, he slipped onto the estate grounds. His presence went unnoticed at first, overshadowed by the joyful chaos of the celebration. When Tiffany and Jason stepped onto the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife, Malik's rage finally reached its boiling point. He stormed into the middle of the crowd, his voice rising above the music. "You think you can just erase me? Replace me? After everything we've been through?" Malik shouted, his voice seething with anger. Tiffany froze, clutching Jason's hand. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what was happening. Jason stepped forward, his expression stern but calm. "Malik, you need to leave. This isn't the time or place for this." But Malik was no longer interested in reasoning. In one swift motion, he pulled out the handgun, and the partygoers gasped in horror. "You took everything from me, Tiffany. My family, my life, my daughter," he shouted, his voice trembling with emotion. Tiffany, trembling but determined, stepped between Malik and Jason. "Malik, please," she said softly, her voice shaking. "This isn't the way. Think about Amara. She needs her father." For a fleeting moment, it seemed as though her words might reach him. His grip on the gun wavered, and tears welled up in his eyes. But the overwhelming weight of his jealousy and anger proved too powerful to overcome. In a horrifying instant, Malik raised the gun and fired. The first shot rang out, loud and sharp, shattering the stunned silence. Tiffany crumpled to the ground, her wedding dress stained with blood. Jason rushed to her side, but Malik fired again, hitting him square in the chest. Chaos erupted as guests screamed and scrambled for cover, some trying desperately to shield children from the violence. Tiffany's mother collapsed to her knees, wailing in devastation, while others frantically called 911. Malik stood frozen for a moment, his mind trying to process what he had just done. As the sound of sirens drew closer, he dropped the gun and sank to his knees, hands raised in surrender. "I did it for us," he muttered, his voice barely audible. The wedding that was meant to mark the beginning of a beautiful life for Tiffany and Jason had turned into a nightmare, leaving 2 innocent lives brutally taken and a community forever scarred. The vibrant Birmingham community, once captivated by the love story of Tiffany Brooks and Jason King, was left reeling in shock and mourning. The headlines were plastered with the horrifying details of the tragedy, a tale that no one could fathom. The influencer who had inspired thousands with her charm and resilience was gone, along with the man who had adored her. What was meant to be a celebration of love became a stark reminder of how jealousy and obsession can turn fatal. Tiffany's family was shattered. Her mother, Denise, struggled to comprehend how her daughter's life had ended so violently on what should have been the happiest day of her life. "She was our light, our joy," Denise tearfully told reporters. Tiffany was building a beautiful future, and now it's been stolen from her. The impact on Tiffany's 5-year-old daughter, Amara, was the most devastating. The little girl, who had been so excited to see her mommy marry the man who had been like a father to her, was now left without either. Family members shielded her from the media frenzy, but the confusion and pain were evident in her wide, tear-filled eyes. "Where's Mommy? Where's Jason?" she asked repeatedly, her questions breaking the hearts of everyone around her. Malik Turner, the man responsible for this unimaginable loss, was swiftly arrested at the scene. Handcuffed and led away by police, he remained eerily calm, his face devoid of emotion. In his first chilling statement to investigators, he said, "If I can't have her, no one can." This confession, coupled with witness accounts and forensic evidence, painted a clear picture of Malik's premeditated act of violence. His words echoed the obsessive nature of his actions. A man so consumed by jealousy and bitterness that he destroyed not only Tiffany's life but also his own. As the news spread, the community rallied around Tiffany's grieving family, holding candlelight vigils and fundraisers to support Amara's future. But no amount of support could erase the haunting memory of that fateful day. The wedding venue, once a beautiful estate filled with laughter and love, became a somber place marked by the tragedy. For those who had witnessed the horrific scene, the images of Tiffany and Jason lying lifeless in their wedding attire were etched into their minds forever. This was not just the loss of two individuals, it was the shattering of a family, the destruction of a community's hope, and the end of a story that had inspired so many. Malik's actions left a void that could never be filled. The aftermath of his crime was a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked emotions and unresolved pasts. Malik Turner's trial was a spectacle that captured the attention of the entire community and beyond. The courtroom was filled with tension as both Tiffany and Jason's families were in attendance, seeking justice for the lives torn apart by his violent actions. Malik, once a figure of resentment and bitterness, now sat at the defendant's table facing the consequences of his deadly obsession. His defense team attempted to paint Malik as a man driven to the edge by emotional distress. They argued that his anger and actions were the result of betrayal, claiming that his inability to move on from Tiffany had pushed him into a state of temporary insanity. They sought to portray Malik as someone overwhelmed by the loss of his family and consumed by jealousy in the hope of lessening his sentence. However, the prosecution was ready. They presented damning evidence of Malik's premeditation. Witnesses testified about his obsessive behavior in the months leading up to the wedding, describing how he constantly stalked Tiffany on social media, sent her threatening messages, and even made numerous attempts to contact her despite her efforts to move on. His refusal to accept that Tiffany had found happiness with Jason was evident in the twisted path his emotions took. Surveillance footage from the wedding venue showed Malik arriving uninvited, walking calmly through the crowd with a firearm concealed. Expert testimonies confirmed that the shots he fired were not impulsive but deliberate, executed with precision and intent. This evidence painted a picture of a man who had planned the murder carefully, fueled by a toxic combination of jealousy, rage, and ego. The jury deliberated for several days, weighed down by the gravity of the case. In the end, the evidence of Malik's premeditated actions could not be ignored. His defense's claim of emotional distress was insufficient to excuse the cold-blooded violence he had inflicted on Tiffany and Jason. After deliberating, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. Malik Turner was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced Malik to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a fitting punishment for the brutal act of violence that had destroyed 2 lives and shattered so many others. As the gavel fell, Tiffany and Jason's families, though relieved, felt no joy in the conviction. The damage was already done. Their loved ones were gone, and Malik's sentence would never bring them back. The trial, while bringing a sense of justice, was a painful reminder of the horror that had unfolded. Malik's conviction ensured that he would never have the chance to harm anyone again, but it could not undo the irreversible impact of his actions. Tiffany's family and friends vowed to continue her legacy, honoring her memory and making sure her young daughter, Amara, was given the future she deserved. As for Malik, his life was now confined to a prison cell where he would live with the consequences of his choices that had cost him everything. This tragic story highlights the destructive power of unresolved emotions and unchecked obsession. What was meant to be a beautiful celebration of love turned into a nightmare fueled by a man unable to let go of his past. Tiffany and Jason's love was meant to symbolize hope and happiness, but it was destroyed by a past that refused to stay buried. The haunting question remains: how could something that began with love spiral into such horrifying violence? This case serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers of letting jealousy and obsession dictate one's actions, and how it can forever alter the lives of those around you. Could Malik's obsession and jealousy have been addressed before they led to tragedy? What lessons can we learn about recognizing and addressing the red flags in toxic relationships and the power of moving on from past pain? If this story shocked you, Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to The Last Confession for more stories that expose the darkest sides of human nature and the devastating consequences of betrayal and obsession.